it's Katrina. From human feet to giant eyeballs, here are 10 of the most unbelievable items that have washed ashore. Number 10. San Francisco Tombstones. It's not unusual to find objects that have washed up on beaches, but residents of San Francisco were in for a surprise in 2012 when some particularly somber items started appearing. Local residents started finding tombstones in the sand of people that had died in the 1800s. First, there was one from 1876, then one from 1890, and they kept on showing up. While this may seem like a dark secret coming to light, the explanation for all of this was far more simple. The reason it had been happening was to do with construction works that had been done to help protect the beaches. The area had formerly been used as a graveyard, but the bodies had long been moved inland. The stones, on the other hand, proved too costly to be moved and were instead repurposed. They were used as breakwaters, gutter liners, and to construct a seawall, and it appears as if some of these had broken loose and washed up on the beach. Number 9. Severed feet. Since 2007, beaches and islands on the coast of British Columbia in Canada and Washington State in America have seen a particularly gruesome series of objects washing up on them. Human feet that in most cases are still in their shoes. In total, 16 feet have been found. Disturbingly, only 2 of these were left feet, which were matched with right feet that also washed up, meaning that the rest must have come from at least 14 different people. It's completely unknown how these feet arrived on these beaches. Only 4 people have been identified as their owners, but there are plenty of suggestions of how such a thing might happen. The strange thing here is that only feet have been found and no bodies. Some people suspect foul play by gangsters, and others think they have come from the victims of a plane crash near the area in 2005. Others have suggested they may actually have come from victims of the Asian tsunami in 2004. All of them have been found within shoes that would provide enough buoyancy for them to be carried by currents across the ocean, so it's completely feasible. The true origin of the feet might be a bit closer to home, though. One of those that were found have been linked to a man who is thought to have committed suicide, and 2 of the feet have been identified as being from a woman who jumped from the Patullo Bridge in 2004. It's quite possible, therefore, that these feet have all come from people who suffered similar fates in the surrounding area. Number 8. Ambergris. As one of the grossest objects you could ever find on the beach, ambergris is probably the one from this list that you'd most hope to find because it turns out that this stuff is incredibly valuable. This substance is made when sperm whales eject an intestinal slurry into the ocean. From here, it floats and bobs in the waves and years later washes up. You'd be forgiven for thinking this was an uninteresting object amongst the rocks, sand, and shells that you normally find. It can be found in many forms, such as large blocks, balls, egg shapes, jagged pieces, or hard rolls, and has a unique smell that purportedly has notes of seaweed, farm animals, and maybe a fecal note. Lumps that have been in the ocean for a long time will have a sweeter, earthy scent to them. This smell, rarity, and unique chemical properties that ambergris has is the reason behind its high value. It was, for a long time, a key ingredient for high-end perfume makers like Chanel and Lanvin because of its ability to fix the scent to human skin. While alternatives have been found in recent times, it is still a highly sought-after substance. A 1.1 kilogram lump that was found in Wales in 2015 sold for 11,000 pounds, around $13,400 at auction later that year. Number 7. World War II bombs. Despite having come to an end more than 70 years ago, the consequences of the Second World War can still be seen around the world when some of the many bombs that were unaccounted for washed ashore. They can come in all different shapes and sizes, are often mistaken for other things by beachgoers, and most worryingly, are still active and able to explode. No one knows for sure how many there are out there waiting to be washed up, but to give you an idea, there are an estimated 1.6 million metric tons of conventional and chemical ammunitions lying on the seabed just in German waters alone. This is made up of over 1 million items, including grenades, detonators, giant aerial bombs, 15-kilo shells, and many more. This is just a fraction of what's on the seabeds of the world in total. With the way ocean currents carry objects around, there is the potential for these items to show up virtually anywhere. It is not uncommon for objects like these to wash up on European beaches. There are many examples of bombs showing up on French and British coastlines, but in 2015 there was even one that washed up further afield in Florida. This revealed another worrying detail, that following World War II, the US government found itself with a large number of unused weapons. Rather than decommissioning them, they chose, instead, to dump all of them in the Gulf of Mexico. So next time you're at the beach, keep a watch out. Number 6. Giant eyeball in Florida. In 2012, a beachcomber came in for a surprise when he found something staring back at him from the sand of Pompano Beach in Florida. After digging the strange lump out and cleaning it off, it turned out he was holding a blue-tinged, softball-sized eyeball. He had never seen anything quite like it, obviously, and super excited, he waved down police officers to show it to them and eventually started contacting researchers across the state to try and identify it. Everyone was stumped and couldn't agree which monster of the deep it had come from. After deliberating between being from a squid or a fish, it was determined a few days later that this eye had in fact come from a giant swordfish. Number 5. The St. Augustine Monster. Possibly the most famous mystery to have washed up from the ocean was the St. Augustine Monster that appeared on Anastasia Island near St. Augustine in Florida in 1896. It was found by 2 young boys who thought it was a whale and reported it to the local Institute of Science. The scientists weren't so sure it was a whale though, as it appeared to them to have several arms or tentacles. Deeming it to actually be the remains of a giant octopus, photos and a specimen were sent to the Smithsonian Museum in 1897. This monster is an example of what is known as a globster, the name given to unidentified biomasses that have undergone huge levels of decay by the time they are washed up and are therefore virtually unidentifiable. Conspiracy theorists, of course, have a field day with these sightings, and ever since the discovery of the St. Augustine Monster, there have been numerous theories as to the identity of the creature. The mystery was finally solved, though, in 2004, when DNA analysis of the biomass that was stored at the Smithsonian proved that it was, in fact, a whale, just like the boys who found it in the first place had thought. Number 4. Fort Bragg's Beach of Glass. Some of the strangest and most beautiful beaches you will ever visit can be found in McCarraker State Park near Fort Bragg in California. Between 1906 and 1967, the nearby waters were used to dump glass, appliances, and vehicles, a policy that has left a long-lasting mark on 3 of the local beaches. As the biodegradable waste broke down, the remaining items began washing ashore, most notably large amounts of glass. Rather than being sharp shards, the ocean processes have smoothed all of the pieces to form glass pebbles, which have become a beautiful tourist attraction. After opening to the public in 2002, the beaches are visited by thousands of people every day during the summer, all of who want their chance to see the most colorful beaches in the world. The glass won't be here forever. The pebbles are slowly disappearing as they are washed back out to sea. Local politicians have refused efforts to replenish the glass due to environmental concerns, so if this is somewhere you want to visit, you had better go soon. Number 3. Doritos. Large volumes of products are transported around the world on cargo vessels. Occasionally, some containers fall into the ocean, and all their contents eventually all end up washed ashore. That's exactly what happened to a container ship carrying Doritos chips that was caught in a storm in 2006. When it fell off the cargo ship, the container split and thousands of bags of chips were strewn across a half-a-mile stretch and resulted in bagloads of images that you would almost believe were stills from the latest marketing campaign. Despite causing such an environmental mess, there was an added incentive for locals to help with the cleanup. To their delight, the chips, that were sealed in foil bags, were perfectly preserved and absolutely safe to eat, leading to dozens of people combing the beach to get a free snack. Number 2. The Montauk Monster. In another case of a globster washing up ashore, the Montauk Monster was found near a popular surfing spot on a beach near Montauk, New York in 2008. The mysterious creature has been the subject of intense speculation since photos started circulating, with people suggesting it may be the remains of a raccoon, rodent, sea turtle, dog, or a sheep. With each suggestion, though, comes a problem. Sheep, for example, don't have sharp teeth. Raccoons don't have such long legs, sea turtles don't have fur or teeth, and rodents have a very different mouth structure. As the creature had obviously been in the ocean for a long time, it had swollen up. Its skin and hair had started to fall away and decomposed in a way that made it very difficult to identify it for sure. Eventually, the scientific community came to a degree of consensus that this was, in fact, the carcass of a raccoon, possibly one that had been diseased before it died. I don't even know. Number 1. Legos. This time, the lucky one to receive an unexpected crate was Cornwall in England, when a crate of Legos fell overboard from the Tokyo Express container ship during a storm in 1997. Instead of remaining at the bottom of the sea, they are all still washing up on Cornish beaches today, offering an insight into the mysterious world of oceans and tides. Inside were almost 4.8 million pieces of Lego, many of which were nautically themed, including flippers, spear guns, seagrass, scuba tanks, and life preservers. The combination of the huge quantity of these tiny plastic pieces and the strong currents in the area mean that beachcombers still find them on an almost daily basis. In some cases, they have even been found up to 300 miles away from where the container fell. Some pieces found on an Australian beach on the other side of the world are even thought to have come from the spill. Over 3 million lost pieces are still assumed to be floating around. It has now been 20 years since they fell into the sea, and maybe you should keep an eye out next time you're on a beach. You may not be too far away from finding your own black octopus or green dragon that have traveled the oceans of the earth. Thanks for watching! Have you ever found anything cool on the beach? Let us know in the comments below. Remember to subscribe and see you next time. Bye!